Totally independent. Fiercely pursuing accountability on policy and implementation. It's time for another DJ Elf 7 candidate interview.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy DGL7. Now, today, as you know, I've been doing this tear running through all the candidates running for different offices in the United States. Right now, I'm covering the Senate candidates, and this is actually a candidate that, I always give him a nice introduction, but this is actually a candidate I'm actually very, very excited about. As in terms of Green Party candidates, he's actually got the most put together campaign out of everybody that I've seen in the nation. If you're a Green Party supporter, I would pay attention to this race. Also, there's a lot of candidates out there that have various levels of preparation. They have various levels of understanding of, this is a special candidate. And I'm very proud to introduce him today. And I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Elf7. My name's Matthew Ho. I'm running as a Green here in North Carolina for the U.S. Senate. I'm a first-time political candidate. I am a anti-war veteran activist. I'm a disabled veteran. I really appreciate you having me on, as well as like the work you've done, and also too this type of series, right, where you're getting all these different candidates and giving people like exposure, as well as getting your audience a chance to see all the different flavors that are out there. So this is really great.
Yeah. Also, right, my audience really caters towards like candidates and people who are activists. So other candidates, right, other Green Party activists, or even libertarians, right, they're actually #1 in the nation right now. But Greens have always been solid, right? That's actually the party that I'm in. And if you guys could check other candidates, I recommend that you check this guy out. His campaign is put together fantastically compared to the other candidates that are out there. Yeah. Anyway, so we heard a little bit about your background. You're a veteran. Honestly, God bless on your service, right? That's to be ready to die for your country. That's a powerful thing, and I really appreciate your sacrifice and your commitment towards doing what you have, doing the work that others don't want to do to make sure that we are secure. And shout out to the Tulsa community. People from that community may watch my channel. This guy really lines up. I would definitely investigate. Actually, you did some work with legislatively, right, to try to get some things done?
I worked with Tulsi's office several times on legislation and resolutions, and she had a great office. The people in that office were terrific to work with, and she was actually really great to work with. We can discuss her further, because I know her views and her stances have evolved, I feel like, over the last few years.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what people do. That's what people do.
Sure. We could get into another show about that, but
Sure.
That's today we're focusing on your candidacy, right? Yeah. And this guy has pushed for legislation. He's definitely anti-war, and just respect. Yeah. Now, besides that, you'll have legislative background as well, right? You were pushing through some stuff. Activists. Tell me a little bit more about your grassroots accomplishments, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I'm really fortunate, really lucky to have a lot of different experiences. A lot of it's because I have Forrest Gumped myself into those positions, just kind of happen to be in the right place, the right time. And, but I have both grassroots level and I guess you call it DC level experience. The DC level stuff first. I've been a member of a think tank, a senior fellow at a think tank, focuses on foreign policy, the Center for International Policy, for, since the summer of 2010. I have lots of experience in DC in terms of working with members of Congress, working with different organizations and foundations and institutions that served on boards, so I have seen how the sausage is made. I've gotten to contribute to that as well. I've gotten to know members of Congress and their staffs, and I know the good and the bad, and so I can come into this with eyes very clear on what actually occurs in DC. I've got if people are interested, they can go to my blog, which is MatthewHo.com, where I talk about in an interview with a guy named Kyle Anzalone, who is a libertarian podcaster, talk about all my different experiences going in to see members of Congress who would agree with you about the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, or the war in Syria, the war in Yemen, but then turn around and say something completely different in public. Right. So, I mean, I've had that experience. I know what it's like. You know, I've seen it. I've been lied to my face.
Is that what turned you into the Green Party? Is that what made you join when did you join the Green Party? What was that all about? Yeah.
I joined the Green Party 2 years ago, I think. I moved back down to North Carolina after my wife and I separated. We were up in Northern Virginia, and I moved back down here.
So as an activist, right? Yeah, and one of the things that really, and I want you to pay attention to this right now, because this guy, right, some people think going to protest is activism. That's one part of it. That's just like one little step. But this guy's chasing down the legislation to the end, making sure that the policy changes, that the change act. We're going to get more into the actual change happening. But this guy's chasing, right, that's real activism, right? Not kind of like half-assed act. This is like making sure all the way. That's real. So props to you on that. I just want to make sure that people understand the difference between your activism and what other people are claiming as activism. And by the way, yeah. So you said that the DC experience versus the what do you call it again? DC experience.
The grassroots experience. The actually being out on the streets. I've done a lot of that. A lot of it has come.
So I'm sorry. One thing that you can say versus these other people, right? One thing that delineates you is your accomplishments, right? So you said you got with Tulsa, you worked on actual legislation, right? So what are some of the specific things, right? Because you could say I worked really hard. What does that really mean, right? What specific things, right, have you accomplished?
Well, I can give you an example. A colleague of mine in the spring of 2011, Jeff Merkley was pushing a bill. A resolution, I should say, in the Senate, Jeff Merkley from Oregon, to authorize drawdown of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. That resolution, which the previous year had gotten, or 2 years previous, had gotten about single-digit numbers in the Senate in terms of favoring. Before that, they couldn't even get someone to sponsor a resolution like that. Spring of 2011, because of the efforts of that I was involved with, and there are several organizations involved with this, we got that resolution in the Senate to pass. So if you actually go back and look in 2011, the U.S. Senate said, yes, we should get out of Afghanistan. Now, it took us 10 years to do it, right? And that's a whole other issue. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in the Green Party, right? I mean, like there's and one of the reasons why you have to have that grassroots activism, that street level activism, that people out there actually putting their bodies on the line to do this, because just the stuff on paper. But to give you an example of what we would do, just so people understand, is we went into Al Franken's office, my buddy Matt and I, and you go in there and you meet with his foreign policy advisor. And in the spring of 2011, the foreign policy advisor said to us, well, we're not really interested in signing this letter to get out of Afghanistan because we've been talking to General Petraeus and his people, and they tell us everything's going well, that since General Petraeus has taken over, that things have gotten better, we've had less casualties, et cetera, et cetera. And, Matt and I take out our information that comes directly from the Department of Defense, and show him, look, that's exactly not what's happening. You guys are being lied to, and we know that they were lied to, not just about Afghanistan, but literally every other war we've been in for the last 80 years. And, the next morning, so that this advisor he looks at, the next morning we get a phone call, Senator Franken's going to sign the resolution. Where the day before he wasn't, because, so that's kind of what's important. One of the things that I came to understand is that in my area was foreign policy, particularly the military and the wars, is that there's so much corporate influence. So in the Senate, say, the Senate Armed Services Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, approximately 7 out of 10 briefings they receive on these issues come not from the State Department or the Pentagon or the CIA or the NSC or whoever, but they come from think tanks and other organizations funded by the defense industry.
That's right.
Right? So that's literally 70% of what the senators are getting in terms of briefings are coming from
it makes sense. Exactly. They have the most to gain, right? So the thing is that I want my audience to right now the thing is that when he talks about specifics, when he talks about fighting for something for 10 years, when he talks about knowing when a vote's going to happen and making a move at a strategic time and knowing the time and the place and who to talk to, other things like he's also interacted with certain people like on the floor. So when he goes into a situation, it's not like he's a newborn babe, doesn't know any left from right or who's this guy or who's that guy. he's had some interaction. So this is the type of candidate that gets me super excited. And notice, I want you to hear the clear difference. Anybody can say I'm anti-corporate, right? But this guy there's a difference. There's layers. There's levels to this. And Matthew Ho is impressing the shit out of me. Yeah.
Well, thank
Either
you.
way,
Well, I do want to say that as much as that stuff's important, the stuff on the ground is. I don't think we can make a hierarchy. I'm not going to say, but I will say that in my room here, this
I get
office
that.
here,
Yeah.
all the photos I have, none of the photos are about me being with some muckety muck someplace signing a piece of paper. All the photos I have they're all personal photos, but they're all activism photos, all with me with various friends and colleagues from different things. I mean, there's some other photos too.
You're a man of action. You make it happen. Yeah, I can tell,
you know, and so you do. You put your body on the line, and you know, you get arrested, you get shot at. You know, I mean, I've been to Palestine, I've been gassed, I've been shot at with live ammunition by the Israeli border police. You know, I mean, like that kind of stuff. I've been detained by the Japanese police in Okinawa. You know, and certainly the things I've taken part in here in the United States. You know, going to Charlottesville. You know, as well as just being out at Standing Rock, as well as then you know, whether they're protests, marches, rallies, whatever you want to call them, whether it's in DC or here in North Carolina, you know, those are important. That's what makes a difference. And you have to focus that, but you can't do them alone.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that connection between the people who are putting their bodies on the line and the pressure and put on the legislators, whether they be local officials, you know, your city and county commissioners, all the way up to your members of Congress, you know, if you don't put pressure on them, but you also don't give them options. If you don't go in there and say, this is what we can do, what do you expect them to do? So we got to put real pressure on them. That's why I believe in running third party. But you also, too, you have to give them options. Okay, here, you know, here you go, you know, so we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I get that too. From running, anybody who's run a business, right? You're probably more likely to vote. So listen closely, right? Yeah. You gotta, you know the deal, right? Yeah. People complain. What can you do? But they provide you a way to make it better. That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that was a great segue to the next segment actually, because I do have partners as well, right? I need a coalition to get my things done. I do. I know that you're disabled veteran. Did you get a that was during the war? You got that?
Yeah, well, also too during my time in service, I have
They give you Purple Heart for that?
No, I've got
Okay.
invisible wounds. I mean, most significant thing for me right now is explosive blast related traumatic brain injury, which makes things difficult. Yeah, so I couldn't be doing this without a team behind me, you know. But
The work is quality.
no.
Yeah, but I have but the work is quality. The work is high quality.
Thank you.
Check out the other Green Party candidates. This is definitely one of the top. Dead ass, right? Yeah. Hey, don't believe me? Check it out for yourself. Seriously. Let's go to okay. Let's move it. So the thing is, I have my partners that I work with too, and I usually put their stuff first. So I want to make sure that their stuff gets covered. So let's take a look at, first of all, let's take a look at Julian Assange. Would you support the freedom of Julian Assange?
Oh, of course.
Hell yeah.
If until I ran my candidacy, hang on a second.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, here's my.
Oh, cool, man. That's
That's normally what's up on.
beautiful.
You know.
I get it. Rotation, yeah. Rotation.
Yeah, that's no exactly. Depending upon what, because I'm running this Green Party candidacy and trying to, you know, kind of make it as big as possible in terms of what we talk about and the issues and bringing people in.
Sure.
You know, usually, but behind me, that Green Party poster is usually where the Julian Assange poster is.
Right. The Green Party is just kind of on highlight right now because of your race.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
but
cool.
you know, depending upon, and then also too, I'm a regular person, so my intentions were okay. I'm going to put the Green Party poster up for things that it makes more sense. It's going to be more general. But if I'm on with someone who's going to talk specifics and we're going to get into Julian, then I'll put the Julian aside. And I forget.
The Unified Platform,
the
Unified Platform 22 is a great way for you to work with other candidates to help the freedom of Assange. So appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've met Julian.
Cool.
I visited with him in 2014 in the Ecuadorian embassy. I can't believe it's been that long, right? I can't believe it's been 7.5 years. I met with him. I remember being in there with him at that point, and he was absolutely very gracious, incredibly kind, but one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and very devoted. but thinking like this guy has been trapped here for how long now, and that's now been 7.5 years later. I mean, he's been in Belmarsh, he's been in British prison now since what, 2018, spring of 2018 or spring of 2019, I can't remember. But so what's being done to him is such a great explanation, story, narrative, whatever, for who we are as a society, that we choose to persecute, we choose to prosecute, we choose to punish the man who tells the truth. And that's exactly what you see.
As a veteran, good deeds are
exactly.
There's no reward in this life for good deeds but punishment. Yeah.
That's
as a
exactly
veteran,
right.
you know that.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But
And
we do it anyways.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. Okay, so great to have your support for Assange. I'm going to move on to some of the other partners right there. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to UBI. Would you support UBI?
I do. I do, but here's my caveat to that. I would prefer to see people paid livable and fair and just wages rather than UBI. So I think it's not a question of, and I also believe in a job guarantee.
Okay.
Right. So can we have a UBI through a job guarantee? I would prefer that, because I think with the UBI, you have I think you get into questions of limitations on how much is actually ever going to be spent on it, right?
Yeah.
But I think but I am in certain situations, I'm completely in agreement with what our vice president said a couple of years ago, that every
Kamala Harris, vice president.
Yeah,
okay.
when she said 2 years ago that at the start of
the
the
didn't get everything wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but she said like, until this pandemic is over, every American family should have a $2,000 UBI, right? And I completely agree with that.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
I think there should be, particularly as we're dealing with this public health crisis. We need to have ways. It's not going to change. We need to have ways to support working class people, small business owners, because the Paycheck Protection Program.
I see what you did there, and I like it. I got it. First I heard Kamala Harris, so I freaked out, but then I saw what you did there. That was actually cool. I like that. I mean, like I said,
even a broke clock is right twice a day. Now she's completely abandoned that, and she never believed it. Probably, she probably believes what she believes now is that people shouldn't, working people can just suck it, and get no help, But the other thing too, I think, is that you have a UBI. Years ago, I always used to have research assistants when I was at the think tank. And years ago, I had a young woman from Australia who had been over here studying. And Australia, their students, and many European countries as well, get stipends.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can not only get to go to school and it's paid for, because that's really not just good for individuals and families, but incredibly good for our entire economy and for future generations to have that. Right. But the idea is that people are able to live their lives fully. So I also see the benefit of UBI in the sense that it allows people to pursue their passions. It allows people to pursue educations. This is one of the big reasons I support a universal health care, Medicare for all, a single payer, cradle to grave, right? Is because it allows people to not be tied to a job because of health care, right? If you are working this job simply because your family needs the health care, what kind of life are you living?
Sure.
But your goal in life is to open a guitar store or whatever. You can do that without worrying about putting your family's health and lives in jeopardy because you don't have health insurance, or getting, spending, and people who are listening know better than I do, because I get my health care from the Veterans Administration. But I know lots of people in my life, and this is what brings me to the campaign, man, is that people in my life whose experiences, what they're having to live like because of our healthcare system, because of the war on drugs, because of student debt, because of housing costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these people in my life who are having these experiences, and these are life and death experiences. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you today.
Okay. If I could just share my take on UBI just for a second, I'm sorry to do this,
please.
But the thing is that I talk with all the candidates. You'll notice that I have the same set of questions for. And in terms of UBI, what I say is, all the policies that you make, right, it has to survive the implementation. We're about to get to another question on that. So the thing is that, it does, a lot of people feel like UBI is like a magic sword that will come down and just magically solve the problems, but it's a forever war. And this is actually another reason why I support you and like you, because notice that he's been on the ground for for how many years? You said 10 years working on that one issue, right?
12 years, I guess,
Well,
now.
that grinding, right, that long grinding, and also making the smart moves. He understands the game in a deeper way, as in terms of the approach, right? As in terms when the UBI gets put in, he'll still be watching. Some people, a lot of politicians, they say, "Oh, I did the UBI," and they walk away, and they
Right.
let the contractors do all their shenanigans, and what was meant to be help the poor becomes weaponized against us. Right. So,
Right.
honestly, just this guy's experience and background, even I would trust that more. So, and
Yeah,
you guys need
let
to
me
do
just
that
add
too. Yeah.
let me just add to that. Like, one of the things can get concerned about with the UBI is exactly the system gets gamed. Look, the people who are fighting us are always going to fight us. Look at the paycheck protection program. Look how that was a racket. Look at everything that has occurred in the last 2 years of the pandemic. If at any time the other side of this fight, and I don't like to make it into two sides because that's why we're in this mess. We got a two-party system. But if those empower those with the wealth, if at any time they were going to say and do anything that had a degree or modicum of compassion, fairness, justice to it, they would have done it in the last 2 years, and they didn't.
Yeah.
But we live in a society where the stock market goes up whenever a new variant of COVID comes out. That means hundreds of thousands more dead people. It also means record stock profits, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so the concern I would have with the UBI is exactly what you were kind of you were saying.
I get that. You're a grassroots guy. You get it.
It's not over.
Yeah.
Like, just because we pass it, because then what happens, and I don't know, I'm not an economist, but like I could kind of potentially see where, okay, everyone's getting the $1,000, say it's $1,000, right? Well, now that causes housing costs to go up because everyone assumes that right? I mean, like, so if you have a UBI, you also have to have a national housing policy, I believe, of rent control that, makes sure that people aren't, that UBI just doesn't disappear, due to inflating housing costs because the housing market is another racket. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. So, beautiful answer. Yeah. I'm really excited to work with you. Anyway.
And just to give people an idea of what I think, what I would do is livable wages, right? Just wages, fair wages, living wages, whatever they're called, that are based upon local housing costs. So
I'm actually working on public housing right now. Actually, just they're actually ending public housing as we know it with RAD, and we'll talk about that later. For real, this work will continue. But some of these candidates out here are fucking paperweights. They're executives who just never really worked with activists, never really worked on these issues. They came out and said some flashy, easy shit, you know what I mean? But this guy actually here has been on the fucking front lines of pushing change through. There's a fucking difference, and people wonder why these people who get elected, right? These pretty faces, these marketable faces, right? Yeah, who haven't really necessarily worked as much. Someone like this, right? Matthew, you really excite me, man. There's so many candidates. There's so many interviews that I do where people just don't have this level of understanding, and it's depressing. It's depressing.
Thank you. Some of it is again, you have to come to this real life experience, and I live. I because of my disability that we discussed, I wasn't able to earn a paycheck for 5 years. Yeah. I've lived poor. I've lived having to get money from family and friends. But fortunately I have a healthcare system that takes care of me. Most people do not. I would say most people, because it's if you have private health insurance, it's very expensive. It's very restrictive, right? So, yeah, I mean, I come to this knowing what it's like to have a negative balance in your checking account all the time, not because of choices you made, but because the way the world unfolded for you. And that doesn't mean that and then you get criticized as being some kind of advocate for just giving things away, and it's not. I mean, I go back to what FDR said with his second Bill of Rights and economic Bill of Rights. I have come to this belief that through experience as well as education, that human beings have human rights, and those include housing, healthcare, education, and jobs. A just living. So yeah, that's how I end up here with you.
Cool. Actually, this next topic, right, is going to be right in your realm right there. It's actually for the disabled community. Now, the thing is that people with disabilities are allowed to be paid sub-minimum wage. Oh. Now, if we look at minimum wage, it's almost like a subsistence wage, right? Barely pay your rent and stuff. Would you support minimum wage for people with disabilities, at least?
No, labor has a value to it, and there are many components that come into that value. Just as a restaurant that purchases meat from the corporation Cisco has a price put in front of it of what it's going to cost for this type of meat in this quantity, the same applies with labor costs. People who are working have requirements and have requirements for the value of their labor. And it doesn't matter if you are 15 years old, if you're disabled, if you're any particular demographic, the labor value remains constant because of your output. And so this idea that somehow disabled people are paid less as if they're some type of subclass of beings is despicable. And in North Carolina, we have that issue. We actually have the way it's set up here in North Carolina is reminiscent of like the 19th century workhouses of England, you know, where people who are disabled are supposed to go to like these special workshops where they will do the work there. You know, you can understand based on the disability, you may have special places for people who have those needs, right? Maybe people who are blind, right? But again, getting back to the fair labor costs, why does someone who is blind not have the same living costs? And if anything, people with disabilities have much greater living costs. So if we were going to create some type of economic hierarchy based on salary or income, I would say disabled people need to be at the top of that because they incur more costs. They have their quality of living is much more expensive than people who are able-bodied, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. There's actually another side to that with a disability thing. Let me think for a moment. So we actually went to Albany, and I want to shout out to my partners right now. Shout out to the Sanj community. What's up, right? Yeah, this is a real one. Check them out. What's up to Yang Gang and Tulsi Community? You guys were UBI promoters, and Basic Income March. That's another group that I work with. And New Leaf Democrats. If you guys check this guy out. Who did I just talk about? Oh, the disabled community. Big shout out to Joe Charest from the United People's Assembly and Mark Saffman. And Downstate New York Adapt for all your work with the disabled. You guys are fucking awesome. And the thing is that, I just want to make sure that they got shouted out, yeah? As in terms of the disability work, we went to Albany. I went to Albany with Mark Saffman, and the companies, the corporations, they went to the hearing as well. And their argument was, right, yeah, we're providing a choice. And they said that the people with disabilities have lower productivity. Maybe we could make up for that lower productivity with federal subsidies or something, right? Yeah, or somehow, but make sure that these people with disabilities do not make less than minimum wage. I mean, there's a way. There's other solutions that can be proposed to handle their concerns. That's nuts. It is the choice.
Nuts. I mean,
they said it was a choice for them. I was like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Anyone in this day and age who's making a productivity argument, when we know the realities of productivity over the last 40, 50 years, how productivity has grown and worker wages have remained stagnant, whereas in the 50s, actually worker wages increased faster than productivity did, and you just see the whole thing just go the wrong way. So someone who's arguing about productivity and not in favor of increasing employee or worker wages is just, look, as my buddy George says, they're either too dumb or they're in on it.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, whatever company that is employing, this is something else I think that maybe comes as a side of it. Maybe we really need to examine our whole nonprofit system, because a lot of it's a racket. You have these nonprofits that have untold Harvard University, with its $40 billion endowment, is considered a nonprofit organization, has special rules to it. I guarantee you.
I think they're at 50 plus now. Last I heard it was 50 plus.
50, I bet. Yeah, exactly.
It's been going up.
Right?
It's been record profits during the COVID time for some industries.
That's right. And so, I guarantee you, any of these businesses, nonprofits that are, or nonprofits that are utilizing people with disabilities as a form of employee, I guarantee you, they at the corporate level, organization level, are getting some form of subsidy,
absolutely,
tax break, whatever. And I know they are making money hand over fist.
Yo, this the
right?
most.
Yeah.
I have
And they
stories
mean
for
like,
you
say,
that.
well, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry. These people over here that are disabled, their productivity is too low for us to pay them a just wage or a living wage, or even what the minimum wage is, which is obscene. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. Sorry, I looked like I was coming in hot. I hope that the audio doesn't mess up. Anyways, we'll see. Yeah, that's on me though. Uh, Only my audio. Anyways, yeah. So let's move on to the next question over here. The next community that I do work with is the trans community. I may be having actually an interview coming up on Cyber Demons channel soon. Thank you for working with me on this particular task right here. So we look at the trans community, people who are, transsexual, right? And
Yeah.
the thing is that they may face a lot of discrimination in their daily life, right? Find it hard to find a job. We all understand, right, that their
Oh yeah. Yeah.
lifestyle is considered, unacceptable by many, which, is whatever your choice is, right? But the thing is that these people may find themselves trying to go for public housing, right? They're discriminated against.
Right.
They can't get into housing, right? So they're trying to get public housing. Let's say that you have 10% of the population you could see from whatever study or just from looking, right? You see that 10% of the people trans are trying to go into the thing, but only 2% are getting into public housing. They either get beating up and they're leaving on their own, or
Yeah.
they're experiencing other things. So there's no law that says you can discriminate against trans people, right? But the reality of it
Right.
is different for them.
Right.
What can you do to help make sure that public things are accessible to people, right, that are facing problems such as this community, where there's no laws, right, that say that you could discriminate against them, but that's what they experience.
Well, I think that's why you need to have anti-discrimination laws. You have to have clear laws that say that, that this population, this demographic, these people
Okay.
are protected, and you cannot discriminate. I mean, you have to have that as a basis. I mean, that's not going to stop some landlord from not renting to someone who's trans. I mean, you're going to have, just as today, the house across the street from me is up for rent, and that landlord could decide not to rent to.
I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about public housing. Well,
public housing.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah,
specifically, right, getting access to publicly funded, because the private market. I mean, yeah, we want to help them there too, but yeah, like you said, it's tougher, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, public housing. I think it's again, you have the anti-discrimination laws. You have I think you put people in charge of making sure that the trans community is being included. I mean, you have someone whose job is to make sure this happens. I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, and that person is empowered. I mean, because this has to happen. You're talking about things happening at the municipal level, right? So, I mean, certainly you could have promulgations from the federal level, and I think that's important. But I think on the local level, you have to have a person with authority, a budget, resources, staff, whatever it is, right, to get it done, to protect these people and to make sure they are included. A lot of it, is we have to be very vigilant about what's occurring in our schools, the censorship that's occurring in our schools. I mean, I graduated high school in 1991 from a high school in New Jersey. Nobody was out. Nobody. I mean, and the idea of someone being trans, that was just so far removed from anything we could conceive of. We would have called them a transvestite or a cross-dresser or whatever we would have said about them, right? Let alone even the fact that anyone in my high school class would have said, hey, I'm gay. Just inconceivable. So how do we move? I'm not saying we should clap and pat ourselves on the back, because no, trans people are being murdered all the time, right? And they're being killed by suicide all the time, and they're being kept out of public housing, let alone private housing, all the time. So, okay, how did we go from 1991 to 2022 with this acceptance, right? How did we go to having, I mean, and that we follow that. This is what we did. And a lot of it's advocacy. A lot of it's people that, who wouldn't be considered normal allies, quote, right, saying this is the right way to do it. I think it's, I hate trying to think of a different word than normalization, because that's a terrible word. But, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Ellen came out in 1996 or whenever that was.
Sorry. Let me just, I just got a notification. Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me just take that out. But,
Okay.
just before you talk about Ellen, I just want to just say that I actually like your answer, because the thing is that a lot of times people that don't know about these issues want to weigh in with their opinion. Right, but the thing is that, right, he's creating an actual right, position where it's their job to understand what's going on. That's actually right. And
Right.
if you take a look at my own
Right.
work, right, with being an activist 25 years in the game, we just actually worked to reinstall the advocate of the disabilities. He's precisely correct. Listen to the difference there, right? Sometimes people will just say, oh, I want to pass this policy without really knowing, right? People want to talk about police reform. They've never even been a security guard, right? What do they really understand about that job? Think about your own job, right? So as in terms of creating a position and an advocate who would really, whose job it is, that's precisely what I would do. And I think a lot of other people who are more experienced as activists, who are more experienced as in terms of like getting change done, listen to the differences. Yeah, this is actually, I'm in the other interviews, I'm interviewing a lot of candidates. You're going to see it happen live. Keep watching these interviews. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think what I'll say with regards to being 1996 and Ellen being on the air and how the effect that had, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of things in our society, media, that can have that effect that helps educate people, that helps people show that, oh, this is what it looks like, this is what it is. Oh, and then the gears start turning in their head, and they're like, oh, why should I care whether or not these two women sleep in a bed together? I mean, like that, you got to get that going, because the foundation that's built against them. And the other thing is having people in public office, having people, and I know here I am a white cis heterosexual man saying this, but we have to have. I think back to the effect that, say, Harvey Milk had in the 70s. Right, being the first openly gay person elected in the United States, and the effect that he had and what he was up against. They had a proposition on the ballot while Milk was only in office, like I think a year before he was killed. But during that time, California had a proposition out there that they voted on, and this was like 1978, 1979, or something like that. That would have any public school teacher who was gay would have been fired. And when that proposition was first rolled out, there was public support in California for this. And because of Harvey Milk and others who put themselves forward, presented themselves, and made the argument, that resolution, referendum proposition failed quite spectacularly. It even was so, you even have figures from conservative California like Ronald Reagan realizing that I can't support this anti-gay, anti-human rights bill, right? And that's because of people like Harvey Milk who put themselves out there, right? And who led. So I think we have to do whatever we can to allow people, from the trans community to be there, and again, I know saying this, I'm a white cis straight guy running, and everything, but that's how I feel, is that we need people, because if you have that type of leadership, you have that type of example, people will follow, people will learn, people will take the time to think, do I really believe this, or am I just going to go off of what I heard my grandfather saying 29 years ago all the time,
Yeah. Hey, man, appreciate it, man. Some of us are out here living it, right? I'm about to appear on Trans Advocates channel very, very soon. And by the way, you're watching one of the only, as far as you probably know, the only Asian American activists in the game. You know what I mean? Thank you for recognizing, right, unique people that's out there. And, that's one of the reasons why I work with these disability trans communities, because we are very so marginalized. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's awesome, dude. Yo, I love that, man. Now we're going, I have some new people that I'm helping out, right? Yeah. So let's talk about some of the new. Traditionally, those are the four that I've been working with. But Right to Repair. Have you heard of something called Right to Repair?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you support?
Yeah. The whole thing that, like my cell phone. Let me make sure I right. My cell phone. I don't have the right to repair this cell phone, even though I paid whatever I paid for it. Or more importantly, I think. I think this is really important in rural communities. I think the example that's used are farmers who purchase tractors.
Yeah.
Right? They can't repair their own tractor. They've got to take the tractor to get, I don't know if it's this bad, but to get an oil change, they've got to take the tractor to a dealership.
Yeah.
Right? And that's basically it, that these corporations have created this system where even though we purchase and own things, we have no ability, not even just to modify it or change it or jailbreak it or whatever, but to actually just fix it yourself. If you crack the screen on your phone, why can't I take it to this guy who's going to charge me $15 or $20? I got to take it to this place. I'm going to take it back to the manufacturer, and they're going to charge me $100.
Yeah. The companies got so greedy with it. I think actually Biden came out with an executive order because it was impacting the military, because they were they couldn't repair the computers or equipment. They were like, no, we need to repair this shit. Shut up.
No, that's been an issue with the military for a long time. There's a famous example of one of our American cargo planes, a U.S. Air Force cargo plane, one of the big cargo planes, and they've got a coffee pot on the plane, for the crew, and they're flying long hours. They got a coffee pot, and it's something like they were not allowed to. One of the coffee pots, the handle broke off, and they weren't allowed to crazy glue the handle back on. The coffee pot had to be returned to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer charged God knows what, right, for that, So it's been a part of the military for a long time, and the corporations, like you said, they're greedy, and they said, hey, this is a good way to keep making money.
Okay, I could ask your position. I'm about to ask your position on some other topics, but before I do that, I want to ask you about like your own area of expertise. Now, some of the candidates that I've talked to, like I told you, there was a police officer who's who can contribute to United Flag platform in a certain way, right? Then there's another one who works in other what are the other fields that they've worked in? There's actually someone who works in Medicare auditing, right? So it's interesting to hear what he has to say on some things. You're coming as a veteran, but what issue was really your specialty as in terms of coming into this race? Because I'll ask you about education, things like that, but you might not know as much about those things, right? What's your area of really passion coming into this race?
Yeah, I guess so you're basically saying if I'm in the U.S. Senate, which committees would I be most appropriate for? And it would be armed services and foreign relations and intelligence. I've worked on all those things. I understand it well. I'm a contrarian. I believe that the oversight responsibilities of Congress have been completely ignored, and just cravenly. They've cravenly walked away from the oversight responsibilities. If you watch a hearing of the House Armed Services Committee or a Senate Armed Services Committee, it's like a collection of bobblehead dolls. All they do is nod up and down in agreement with the generals and admirals that are sitting in front of them. There's very little oversight. There's a fine line between deference and respect, and the Congress has for a long time now deferred rather than do their oversight. So it would be exactly that, these issues of war and peace, because that's what I know best, and that's what I've been doing, and that's where I think I can make the biggest impact. But like anything else, any member of Congress, any state legislator, any county commissioner, any town council member, they have to be a mile wide and an inch deep, because everything is your responsibility. So I think, and that's a problem. I've seen this. I was very close with the late Walter Jones, who was a Republican Congress member from North Carolina. And he would talk to me about this quite a bit, about how many members of Congress would absolve themselves of knowing about anything that wasn't in their committee. So that in an issue, say like with Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or the Pentagon budget or any of these things, they would say, well, I'm just going to do whatever Nancy Pelosi, I'm just going to do whatever John Boehner, whatever they direct me to do, whatever my leadership tells me to do is what I'm going to do, and I think you see that throughout. And that's why the committees are so important. And this is borne out by the fact, if you go and look at campaign financing, go and look at who funds the various members of Congress, you will see that the corporations, they just don't they do throw money all over the place. But the members of Congress that are making the most amount of money, say, from the defense industry, are those on the Armed Services Committee. The members of Congress that make the most amount of money from John Deere and Caterpillar are those on the Agriculture Committee. Right. So the people who are really bought and paid for in Congress are on those committees. And so going into the Senate, for me to be on a committee on healthcare or natural resources, something would be a stretch. I don't have that background. But for them to not allow me to be on a committee about the military, the wars, Veterans Affairs, the Pentagon budget, foreign policy, whatever, they could not do that without exposing themselves as exactly who they are, which is, and that's where you get down to as you dissect this and understand what Congress is at this point. It's two sides of the same coin. It's either a protection racket or legalized bribery.
Yo, by the way, I love your answer, but sorry to just love you so much, but I really do. What's the Actually, I went to D.C. recently, and there's actually a senator or a representative who actually matches your story a lot. Tammy Duckworth. What you think about her?
Yeah,
this is just on the side. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really know as much about her. She's been really great on some issues. I think she tends to vote very centrist Democrat at times. I know there's times I've looked her up and I've been disappointed with her vote. There are some issues I think that she's been good on, but I don't think she represents veterans as well as the active duty service members as well as she can. Right now, who do we have in Congress?
You never got to meet with her or anything like that? It sounds like you worked with her across paths.
With her. And as far as I know, she is not interested in meeting with people who have views like ours. Anything that would somehow cause her to be seen as an unreliable partner to various political interests. And so, I mean, she is good on certain issues.
Yeah. Hey, good to know, man.
But she's also not so great on other issues and where you really want her to stand. And I was just kind of reminded of this because even, the guy's disgraced. I don't know if he's in jail still or what, but Duncan Hunter Jr., who was a Republican, Southern California. His dad was a big time Republican. He inherits his seat. And Hunter had a lot of problems. I agree with him very little. And he got, he was using campaign finance money to pay his mistresses, and he was dirty as all get out. But he actually took on the Army and the Pentagon all the time. He actually was one of the few members of Congress who would tell generals, "You're absolutely wrong. You're full of nonsense. You don't have any evidence to back this up." And so he actually did his job at times. And I don't see that enough. We were at this point where we're on a knife's edge over Ukraine. And I don't see members of Congress who are standing up and saying, wait, hang on, where is the evidence for any of this? Why should we believe you? You've lied for decades before. What is the value and what is the purpose in this? What is the worth in this to the United States? Where are the members of Congress who are saying that? And they're not existent. Yeah.
Well, I'm about to ask you a real tough question right now, yeah? And this is actually a warning out to all the other rest of the people that is watching. I want you guys to pay attention. I expect this guy to pass this question with flying colors, but notice that this question over here will be, right, he could flub it up, right? But the thing is that there's a lot of other people who you're going to notice me asking. And I'm going to start driving this. I usually save this to the very end, but I'm going to ask this early. And I want you guys to pay attention to this question because a lot of people out there, right, they say they're going to fight the corruption. They say they're the solution, right? Yeah? Then I say, okay, so in your own life, right, yeah, within your own work, right, activism, whatever, blah, 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 right, yeah? Point to some corruption, right? And don't make it just be like Nancy Pelosi, like everybody else knows. If you're really about fighting corruption, then you can point to something that we don't know about or probably don't know about, right, in your own field, right? If you're real casual about the corruption, right, these people who say they're about corruption, they're not. They're not, you know what I mean? They have, when it's time for them to say in your real life, where have you fought corruption, they have nothing to say. Right, but who's the corrupt people? You willing to call them out? Who's corrupt, man?
Yeah, there's actually.
You only have to name one. Go ahead. I'm sure you got probably a list of them.
Well, I mean, I do. I can talk about all the different times that I met with as I said earlier. Give you a broader example. A number of years ago, a couple of anti-war organizations did a hearing in the House, and they had all these progressive candidates come in. And as the progressive candidates, all the progressive members, not candidates, members, speak, and these said, we got to cut the Pentagon budget, and we got to end the wars, and then as these members of Congress exited, they had a couple people outside with clipboards, and so and so, blah blah blah, and what they were asking was, will you pledge not to take money from the defense industry? And I can't remember the number that said it, but it was a handful that said, I will not take money from the defense industry. Meanwhile, you had all these people who were saying, we got to cut, right? I mean, so like that's the type of the whole system, but I can tell you too, like give you an example. It was St. Patrick's Day, 2000.
Do you remember a specific name? You willing to name the names?
Yes.
Who's one of those cornballs? Name one of those cornballs.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, Adam Smith.
Damn, get him. Hell
right?
yeah.
You know,
That's
Adam
what I'm talking
Smith,
about. See,
who-
you heard it here. And I'm telling you right now, this is the type of thing. So this, for me, this is like the delineation between a real one and someone just talking about the shit. You get what I mean? If that person
Yeah.
has no fucking solid, if they say they're about fighting corruption and they have no fucking like personal experience with that or able to talk about it in any intelligent way, and they just say like, Nance, come on, man, you fucking reaching. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
you mad, you probably average dude. I'm not mad at that, but you just not really. And when it comes time to fighting these experienced fucking entrenched ass motherfuckers, you need someone who knows what's up. So thank you for flying on that answer well. I
Yeah,
have no
let me
doubt.
tell,
Yeah.
let's tell you that Adam Smith story, and I have a bunch more like it.
I'm sure, yeah. Because
right? You know, but
I
like,
get it because I do the same thing.
yeah. So Adam Smith went in there with one of his former staffers, which is why we had the meeting. It was me and two other people, and one of them was a former staffer, and I think maybe that's why Adam Smith was a little more comfortable in opening up. And Adam Smith, who at that point was, I can't remember if the Democrats controlled the House or not, but he was either the chair or the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. He's now the chair of the Armed Services Committee in the House. And Smith said to us, he said, I know that the generals and admirals lie to us when they come in. And that was it. He doesn't do anything about it. Right. I mean, I've had the same thing, not with like, I've had the same experience with Jack Reed, you know, who is, I think I don't know where he is on the Senate Armed Services Committee at this point.
I just want
right. He's been chair.
I'm sure that
same example.
There's a lot of stories, I'm sure, but I just want to make sure that you are actually working on this, know what's going on, actually ready to name names, right? Stuff like that. Like that's your past, yeah. So now,
thank you.
I'm going to ask about some other common, just like probably like everyday issues that the populace might be concerned about, right? And so just general stuff. So let's take a look at this COVID thing, right? Well, maybe even over talked at this point, right? COVID mandates, but I know it's a hot topic. Where are you on that whole thing?
Mandates? Yeah, you know, I've had people say to me in the Green Party, don't even talk about it because I've been doing politics for 30 years, however, and I've never seen an issue like this. And you can't say, right, anything you say, it's going to get twisted. And so, I mean, I think we have to look at the fact that mandates legally aren't going to happen, and there's no one proposing them. You know, do I think mandates can be appropriate for healthcare workers, for first responders, for in the military? You know how many shots I had to get when I was in the military? I got 5 of those 6 anthrax vaccines, right? I mean, so, but you can understand why there are certain places that need to have that level of healthcare. But the other thing too is that, like, if you come to this, you know, the way I look at abortion, with abortion, the issue for me is about bodily autonomy. And so if I say that women have a right to abortion because of bodily autonomy, as guaranteed by the 4th Amendment to the United States and the 9th Amendment as well, I believe, that then how can I say you have to have, a
my body, my choice. My body, my choice.
That's right. You know, I mean, we have to stay, and this is why on these hard matters, we have to go back to principle. Now, what I will say, though, is this: the fact that the vaccines are very important. I've had 3 vaccines so far. The 2 and then the booster, and I will get another one, right? I have people in my life who are not vaccinated. There are intelligent people who've made a decision based upon their lives, and it works for them. You also see with the vaccines, from my understanding, and this is one of the biggest breakdowns we've had in the last 2 years, is the ability for people, even people like you and I, who follow the news all the time and read, we still don't know what the reality is, right? But what I can understand is that the vaccines don't really have a great effect on transmission. They have some effect, but not a great effect. Is it enough of an effect to say everyone has to get the shot? I don't think it is.
That's a good point.
Now, masks are something different. And I think that mask mandates work. And I think that they are not an intrusion on bodily autonomy, just as like wearing a seatbelt, right? I mean, so, but aside from that, and I know that divides the country. I know I've got half the people saying this guy, he's anti-vax. The other people are saying this guy, he's a fascist. And I said all this to put this out there because we need to have nuanced discussions where we're not afraid to hold back because of what we believe, because that's how we get compromised candidates, and that's how we have a compromised political system, and that's how we have the world we're living in. Sure. Now, what we can discuss, though, I think, and we should discuss, is why after 2 years of this pandemic, 900,000 dead, we know hundreds of thousands of those dead are dead because they did not have health care. or reliable or consistent or any kind of access to healthcare, right? Can't go in because my deductible is $15,000. Why are we not improving our healthcare system? Why are we not moving toward, right? I mean, the fact that what have I gotten from the government in terms of assistance during this pandemic? Well, okay, yeah, they did do the vaccines. However, they've sent me and that's it. The 4 tests I've received. So why are we not doing more? Look, the healthcare system we had was broken and failing before. People were dying.
Yeah.
I mean, again, life and death issues. That's not hyperbole. People were dying. We were paying more than anyone else in the world for our healthcare, and compared to like the other wealthy nations of the world, we were getting some of the worst outcomes. I mean, just absolutely insane that we keep going along with it. Pandemic comes, and now we see a system that can't do what we need it to do, and people die because of it. And so that's my answer. Forget everything I just said about the mandate. Forget everything I just said about the masks. My thing is, what I am concentrating on is Medicare for all, universal health care, single payer, cradle to grave, no payment at any point of service, et cetera, inclusive of everything, including alternative treatments, mental health treatments, all that kind of stuff. That's what we need. If we were in that, because if you look at,
if I just interject for a second. So when you do, just so you know, as in terms of Medicare for all, I was actually as far as I know, the only Asian American organizer for Medicare for All March. I was actually one of a strong organizer for the New York team. And also, I was the first person in the nation that forced the vote, which was there to push for Medicare for all at AOC's. I don't know if you heard of something called Force the Vote.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I have, I've been in medical school. I have thousands of hours of observation in multiple emergency rooms as staff, and also in doctor's office, including pulmonologist and a neurologist. And also, I worked as a legal observer defending patients against insurance companies.
Okay.
But the thing is that, right, you won't hear about, and my take in this, right, the people that are leading the Medicare for All Arch movement, unfortunately, you'll see a lot of celebs and not a lot of grassroots people, and it's a real problem. And the fact of the matter is that they're trying to install the wrong people at the leadership of that particular organization who will not look out for the interests of the people the way that you were talking about, the way that that I'm about. And it's a real issue. Some of those things are coming to a head now. But if you do the Medicare for All stuff, like reforms and stuff like that, I definitely recommend myself to have a conversation. And right, with all those hours of observation, I definitely know how the system's broken in many ways that others don't. And I'll be glad to help you with that. Yeah.
Let me just say as well. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for all the work you're doing with it. And let me just say with COVID, a couple more things. We have not vaccinated the world.
Yeah.
The fact that the pharmaceutical corporations are making incredible profits, tens of billions of dollars, while vaccines are being denied to countries. That is, and this is why, right, as they've been saying, the fact that Joe Biden back in November or whenever Omicron appeared, Joe Biden said nobody saw it coming. Just the lies. Again, either he's in on it or he's doesn't know what's going on. The other thing too is that with a Medicare for all, do we then have people who are able to go to the doctor, who can have, who are able to help develop their medical literacy, if you will, right? Who can make an informed decision about whether the vaccine is right for them and their families because they have a doctor that they have a relationship with. If we have that we are in a much better situation. And then there's other things too. You see the polling about why do people not get vaccinated? And, consistently, there's a good chunk of people, a third a lot of times, who say, look, I just can't find the time off to go to the doctor. And I don't know where to go, and all those kinds of things, which I know people scoff at, but that's the reality of life for a lot of people, is that they can't get time off to go sit in the emergency room or whatever, and they don't know that they can go to the CVS, and get their shot there. So there's a lot of things like that too that come in this conversation that, again, ignore what I said about mask mandates, ignore what I said about the vaccines, and let's concentrate on what, we can do in terms of infrastructure, that would not just improve our health, the public health situation with regards to COVID, but would improve the public health situation overall. That would be huge. And then, of course, like I said about the vaccines, these vaccine patents, which are just absolutely criminal and sinful and so immoral.
Yeah. So another thing is the federal government takes care of certain things, the state government takes care of certain things, the city government takes care of certain things, right? But one of those things is going to be education. The federal government does, right? A lot of the education happens locally. right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
so the federal government does have some say in what goes on over there. You have any particular thoughts about education reform?
Well, yeah, sure. I believe
I'm
education.
sorry. One big thing is also student debt, right? Is also included within
Oh,
that
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, I believe education is human right. I believe that the education system in this country has proved ruinous for generations of people. I mean, there are loads of baby boomers who have student debt.
Yeah.
I heard someone talking about this a couple weeks ago, and he said that it's just young people,
I think
and
the
it's
total's
not.
1.4 trillion, though. I think that's what they
I
say.
think it's 1.7 trillion,
Something like
and
that.
I
Yeah.
think that only about a quarter or a third of the student debt is held by people under the age of 34. It's something like that, right? Where this conception is that, well, it's all these millennials who just got out of college and they went to Vassar or to Brown and spent $200,000 on a English degree, and now they can't get a job and pay it. And that's the myth. That's like this generation's welfare queen myth, right? It's completely untrue. Most of the people who have student debt are, in their mid to late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and that is dragging this economy down. First of all, it's completely unfair. Just talking to a guy I know who I believe he's a Trump supporter, but he was explaining his situation to me. He's a healthcare professional. It cost him $210,000 for his training.
Yeah.
That was 15 years ago, and he still owes $180,000.
Yeah.
He's spending close to $1,000 a month on his student debt. I mean,
another thing that's crazy though. Okay, so I told you about the public housing thing, right? Yeah. Guess who's one of the largest landlords in New York City? NYU. You talked about that huge money that Harvard has, like I think it's $54 billion endowment or something.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things I have in the unified platform, we'll see if it could pass, right? But I just want to fucking raid that whole shit, right? They're buying property, public housing to like make money off it. These are no longer educational institutions, financial institutions. Let's raid all that shit, sell it off, and use that to pay off the student debt. You know, what I mean, they shouldn't.
Exactly.
What are they doing with all that money? What are they doing with
know,
education? Yeah.
It is, and with other aspects of education, if we as a society, no one in the society, I think, is saying that pre-K education is not important. And all the studies and experts and everything say it's so critical. Yeah. Okay, we know that. Why is it not universal then? And the same if we've gotten to, if college now, getting a BA or a BS, is the equivalent now of graduating from high school in the 1940s, and is the equivalent now of just getting an elementary education, say in the late 19th century, when these things were really implemented, right, and really made into like, this is what's going to happen, then why aren't we addressing it that way? So why are we not saying, what, the world has changed, it's evolved. Our workforce has evolved. Our economy has evolved. Competition abroad has evolved, however you want to talk about it. But the fact is that higher education is necessary. And if we think it stops at the BA, BS level, it doesn't. We know that, people are applying for entry-level jobs with master's degrees and PhDs. I mean, I saw it in a think tank I was at, so the, this idea that somehow we can continue this usurious racket with student debt, and that the higher education system, which in itself is necessary and needed, and I don't know how people don't understand that either of those things, and particularly when you put them together, doesn't create such a bang to the system. Think of it like an economic big bang that would do so much for this country in terms of immediately, because people will be free of their debt. So kind of like with Medicare for all, people are no longer tied to a job because of their health care. Now people have, like in the case of the guy I was just talking about, he's got a wife and 2 kids, that frees up $1,000 for him to do something with every month for his family's benefit, right? The consequences, the ripple effect to our economy will be enormous. And then, of course, higher education, making that universal, what that does for our society in terms of, current and future generations. People want to know, how do we become more competitive? How come the Chinese are beating us, or whatever the conversation is? Well, look, we're not doing those things necessary to make sure that we have a really robust economy, and that we have, and the other thing about universal higher education is it allows people to pursue their passions, right? So it's not the idea that we got to just make everybody become mathematicians and engineers, but like, no, you have the opportunity to go do what your heart. So that makes our society as a whole healthier, right? And then that's how also we get entrepreneurs, right? And that's how we get people who create art,
Yeah,
right? And that's how we get
division
people,
of labor.
right?
Yeah, division of labor is excellent technology. Yeah, and specialization and stuff like that. That's why also before when I talked about what you said earlier, right? Notice that people that have been working in activism, people that have been working to make change happen, right? They've acquired a certain set of skills and knowledge that make them, right, particularly suited to the job. So make sure you suss out the real ones out there and stop, all these celebrities and pundits. What do they really know? They're not really doing the work on the ground. They're just reporting what the managers tell them. So I appreciate your work. Now, actually, as in terms of federal spending, right, there's certain categories that we've covered some of them, right? There's just a couple of categories left, like Social Security is actually a large part of our spending. I'm going to leave that alone. I think people, understand it's probably underfunded, but national defense we already talked about, right? Your exclusiveness of that. Education is a big part of our spending, but also health, right? Yeah, health is one of our largest expenditures. What about health reform? You have any particular thoughts on that?
Well, certainly with the Medicare for all, and we spend, what is it, close to $20 trillion a year on healthcare in this country. So we spend more than anyone else, and we get some of the worst outcomes. When you compare the United States healthcare quality to other wealthy nations, you see that we're at the bottom, and that's the way it's been. And Obamacare did not make it better in terms of healthcare outcomes. It did allow, look, I have people in my family who benefited from Obamacare. So it did have a positive effect for some. But I also know many more people who've now seen their premiums double, triple, right? I mean, like, I'll give you an example in my life. My ex and I was going to the VA, so I wasn't paying, but we were paying for her health care as a woman in her mid-40s, $10,000 to $12,000 a year, I mean, just that we were, and then, others, I mean, I know plenty of people who can't afford health care. And these are people who are in their 40s, who have worked all their life, maybe things got difficult or something happened, but I know lots of people who cannot. I mean, I have someone who has, in my life, who has mental health troubles and cannot go to a therapist because they can't afford it. And the line to see someone at the public clinics is months long at times, or it doesn't work for them or whatever. I mean, like, so it's that guy. I see that all the time. I have another friend who's a healthcare worker. She had to choose. She can't afford insurance for herself, right? She insures her daughter and her mom, but she can't afford insurance for herself, even though she herself is a healthcare worker. I mean, like, so we see how this affects. And then, of course, what it's delivering, and we look at the pandemic, we look at the fact that we also have a public health infrastructure that cannot be responsive to crisis. So it's this. I think it's, again, another issue that healthcare is a human right, that the idea of profit in healthcare is just wrong. We cannot allow it. Does that mean then that doctors and nurses and administrators are, no, I mean, living in poverty? No, it means that they can be paid. I mean, you go to these other countries that have these programs and they're living well. I mean, and as we look and we see, and we know what the answer is, because we can see nations all around the world that have this type of healthcare system, that it works and it does well and the people enjoy it and they like it, because of the safety it gives them, because of the access to healthcare, the immediate responsiveness to it. Now, do you have to wait at times like any system? Of course you might have to wait if you're getting some type of elective thing. I've got to do that at the VA, but I also know, because I have enough people in my life who have private healthcare insurance, that's how it works in the private sector too. I mean, like, it's so this argument that somehow, if you go to the United Kingdom, you got to wait 3 months to go see this, you got to wait 3 months here probably too. That's one of the things that's amazing to me. People say about the VA. You actually look at the VA wait times, are the wait times too long at the VA? Sure they are. But when you actually look at the VA wait times compared to private sector health care in the United States, in many cases, the VA wait times are either the same or less than what the private healthcare wait. But it's all about, because it's all about profit. So you have me. Like, I had a girlfriend years ago who, when Obamacare was being Obamacare was being tried to implement it. She worked for a big public relations firm, and she worked for the health insurance companies in terms of manufacturing and manipulating public education on health insurance.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. So on a healthcare. So what we're up against, like we spoke about earlier, these people will always fight us. They will always fight us. And so we have to be organized. We have to be with clear goals, clear demands, what we want, understand who our constituency is, understand who our allies are, and understand who our adversaries are, and then take them on and defeat them. I mean, that's the way that we save lives.
Yeah.
That's it. And it is a life and death issue.
You know, and also this guy has also been on disability, right? Been through the health system, right? I have through a different health system, the Veterans Health System, but still through a federally funded health system. So the thing is that a lot of times people only want to look at the managers of the system to ask where the problems are, but the people who've been victims of the system know the problems are in a very different way. So it's so important that these voices be included, right, and not excluded for celebrities and, you know, people with followings.
Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But that's excellent work, by the way. You see this spot right here? Yeah. I don't know if you guys have a bumper sticker or something, but I'm ready to put a Matthew Hofer for North Carolina up on here. What's up? You know what I mean?
Thank you.
We'll talk about that after the show. We'll try to set something up. I could just make a sign myself. I will actually just print out something and put something up for you.
Cool.
You know, that's how much
you.
I am a fan of what I heard today. You are unique in that status. I don't do that for everybody. And so tell us how people can find out more about your campaign. You have a website, you got a Twitter. What's going on with all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So website is MatthewHoferSenate.org. It's last name spelled H-O-H. So MatthewHoferSenate.org. Go there, please. You can see what our platform is. You can learn more about the campaign as well. You have the opportunity there to donate, which, you know, we have to get on the ballot here. We're not on the ballot yet. And one of the things that you learn when you do this is how expensive it is to get on the ballot. So we need help with that. But also, too, you can sign up to volunteer. You know, you don't have to be here in North Carolina to volunteer. You can be outside the state, you know, and you may think I've got nothing to contribute, but, you know, let us decide that. You know, the number of people will say, I don't know what I could do for the campaign. Then we ask them a couple questions about who they are. And it's like, oh, my God, you're exactly who we need to do this. So, you know, there's that. And then it's a very simple thing of telling people about the campaign. Share this interview, share our website, you know, on Twitter, it's Matthew P. Ho, P as in Patrick. On Instagram, it's Matt for Senate, you know, but you can look all these things up, and, you know, we're on Facebook. You know,
Matthew
so
P. Ho on where? Matthew P. Ho, I said Matthew for Senate, like, is that a for Senate on Instagram?
Yeah. So on Twitter, it's Matthew P. Ho, P as in Patrick.
On
That's
Twitter,
on
Twitter,
so,
okay.
And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's Matt for Senate.
Okay.
The letter, the number 4, excuse me.
Yeah, if you, I'll send you when the video's over. If you could put in the comments, write the links to all that. That's probably fantastic.
Absolutely.
So it should be right below. All right, folks, check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate this. And then, you know, support people like DJ Elf7 here, because we need that. Like, we are locked out of traditional media. I mean, it's such a what we're up against. And I go back to what Martin Luther King says in his Beyond Vietnam sermon from 1967, which people have never listened to or heard. You know, please read that or listen to him. And, you know, his words 55 years later still are there. You know, but what he says is that, you know, compassion is not flipping a coin to a beggar. Compassion is taking on the edifice that creates beggars. And you mean this idea that if we don't take on the establishment, if we don't take on the system, the machine that allows for all this, then we will only get crumbs. And that's what we get. We get crumbs.
Let me tell you something.
We get crumbs.
Yeah, let me tell you something incredible I'm working on, right? So the thing is, remember them getting all these candidates together, right? Yeah, and one of the things is that, remember, I'm in New York City, which has 8.5 million people. It's actually the largest market in the nation. Brooklyn Cable Access, right, will actually, you don't have to have a residency requirement to get your stuff on there. Remember that now we're setting up a network where you can talk to people from all over the nation: New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Idaho, New Hampshire. You know why those are politically important. California, right? I have people in Seattle and maybe possibly Illinois ready to go. We might be able to have New York, Illinois, and Chicago and LA with combining together with different media producers and with candidates such as yourself who really care about change, and be able to come out with a new generation of media content put on public cable access. If we make our content good enough, just like Stranger Things or whatever, people will come to visit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm really excited about when you said about putting it out. And honestly, I'm highly suppressed, not just by the mainstream media, but progressive media. But the fact of the matter is that they can't stop us. I have 10,000 flyers I printed out right about running into city council or for a county committee. And I'm just gonna find the people that are committed like yourself. And I made 10,000 flyers. I'm in the projects every day, like handing out these flyers. You know what I mean? Getting people to run.
Yeah, you know, that ties into how we're doing our campaign here, both for ballot access and the regular campaign. I have throughout North Carolina regional leads, people who are responsible for certain areas of the state, and then they have people underneath them. And the idea is that, and we pay as we can, you know. So please, if you want to donate to a pro-worker campaign that believes in paying people, you know, we pay between $18 and $20 an hour. You know, who believes in doing what they preach, you know, please help us out. You know, but this idea is that we've got people out there, right? And they're on the ground, and, you know, there is someone in Charlotte today who's got a clipboard, and they've got the, you know, but it's also a chance to touch voters, right? You know, and not, you know, in the sense of like, hey, hear from them, tell them about us, let them know that there's an alternative, right? I mean, and that's the essence of organizing, you know. I mean, right, knocking on doors.
Have you run for office before?
No, it's my first time.
Okay, so you know, I do have some other things that I could maybe help as in terms of regard with that. I do have some experience. I'm not trying to say I'm pretty fucking good at it. Like, so let me remember I talked about like to getting the county committee people to back you up, right? To find other committee people who the Libertarians are very good. I have a video on my channel about how Libertarians just took over 200 seats in historical. You know, there's something called the Munson Maneuver, they call it whatever. Another thing is that the Democratic voter registration forms, I think, are available by FOIA requests. So actually what we did is in New York City, we compiled all that information, we did free to candidates to further democratizing the process, because normally corporate campaign consultants charge money to get access to these lists. But you may be able to find other open data source activists in your region who are willing to help you compile this data together and make that information available so you can attack the ground in a more strategic way.
Right. You know, the other thing too is one of the things that we want to really address once we get on the ballot is getting into the rural areas. You know, we have 100 counties in North Carolina, 80 of them are rural, and no one ever, they're taken for granted. You know, they're taken for granted.
Remember,
and,
Biden won won without a ground game. He couldn't even get 20 people to take over those cars. The thing is that, right, to fight against the mass media and the comfortable people at home that are going to do what the media or progressive media tells them is a strong uphill battle.
It is, and we have to show that we're viable, right? So we need people involved. So in order to get on, you know, to be on the whether it's the traditional or alternative media or whatever, you got to show that, you know, you're viable. You know, I mean, it's a terrible catch-22 chicken or egg kind of thing where, right, you know, it's like, well, they say you're not viable, and you say, well, how can I be viable if I can't get in front of people, right? I mean, unless you put me in front of people, I can't be viable. And they say, well, you can't be in front of people unless you're viable. You know, it's kind of, it's very difficult, but there's ways to do that. And we've seen people who are successful in that. I mean, I certainly think what Bernie Sanders has done, you know, which comes out of what Obama did, in a sense of being able to run a campaign on small donations. I mean, that scares the hell out of both big parties.
Are you hooked up with Veterans for Peace?
Oh yeah. I'm absolutely.
I would love to have, right. Let's do something together with Veterans for Peace, where we have these third-party independent candidates coming together to design the design the anti-war part of the unified platform for 22. I think.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure they could do that. I mean, they're a 501c3, so you get in all that, but there's ways we can do that. Yeah.
They could just support it, right? I could host it, right? You could host it, right? I don't care who hosts it, right? But it also puts you in terms of like a leadership position within the unified platform. Jonathan Howe running against AOC is in there, Diane Say running against, you know, I think it could help your campaign. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, we'll definitely stay in touch. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hey, last thing is people have your info now. They have your Instagram. They have your Twitter, all that, your website. What do they have to look forward to? What's coming up?
What's coming up is the campaign continues to roll out more people. You know,
Okay.
we keep having people, right? So, I mean, this idea, again, as I was describing, you know, as we implement our, you know, ballot access plan, so we have people on the street. I mean, that's what we have, and then, you know, as we start to do more events.
I think one of your competitors has already like announced a tour, a whole bunch of town halls.
Several of them have, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got the money behind them to do that. So,
Right.
you know, all the, I don't know if the Republicans are doing it, but all the Democrats had this in the primary down here, had this idea that we're going to, again, 100 counties in North Carolina, we're going to do a 100 county tour. And so, yeah, it's a great idea. And what I would love to do that. I would love to, first of all, I'd love to see all 100 counties in North Carolina. That'd be wonderful, you know, but the other side of it too, though, the other side is that, well, okay, you need a lot of money for that. You know, I mean, you got to pay for gas, food, hotels, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's ways you can mitigate that. But, you know, I mean, but that's kind of the idea is really for us understanding that, look, like for me, even though I've been on local television here in North Carolina, I've been on television stations in Charlotte and Raleigh, I've had op-eds in the 2 biggest state newspapers, you know, when they see your third party, they pull back and they don't want, even the people I've worked with. So when I email directly to the television reporter at CBS 17 in Raleigh and I say, hey, I'm running for a Senate, I hear nothing back.
Yeah.
When 3 months ago, this person was like, hey, I hope to have you on again. You're terrific, you know?
Lying.
So we're up against that, right?
Yeah.
So how do we prove them wrong?
Yeah.
How do we say to, you know, and you know, this is the way it is. I mean,
people that
like,
are even mildly sympathetic with the Green Party, it's time to step up and take over that county.
Yeah.
Make the visit, right, and make the visit to those nursing homes, right? If those are a huge part where the Democrats exert their control, right? So get into all those spots. Yeah, you know, the LA vote a lot. Yeah.
And know that you're in good company because, you know, the latest poll I know of was that 62% of Americans want a third party. It's something like 85% of Americans want major reform, you know, so abolish the electoral college kind of stuff, bring in ranked choice voting, get money out of politics. That's what we need. And so if you believe that, know that you are in the majority, despite what you hear on Fox or MSNBC or CNN or what the New York Times or the Post or the Journal says. You are in good company.
You know, actually, have you ever heard of something called the People's Party or MPP?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the thing is that, which you might not have heard, but Paula Jean Swearengin was recently removed, right? Yeah?
I did see that, yeah.
Okay, there's actually 5 generations of past leadership, including Jonathan Martin, one of the few professors of third parties in the nation, myself, the petitioners, which is hundreds of people, the current generation of Keith Mark and Mark Mixon with my full support, right? All of these people do, by the way. Now possibly Paula Jean Swearengin, right? All these people are still working together in something called Unified People's Assembly. We actually have Texas, a lot of states. I know you need help in your state right there, but I would love to introduce these people to you. And I would love for, right, in terms of the third party movement, they are all still passionately working towards those ends. And honestly, I think you are exactly the right thing for this group to meet. You're
absolutely, totally.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking with you more, man. God
bless,
bless,
this
man.
is great.
Hell yeah. All right, so what's up? Check it out, for real. This guy's the realest. I'm saying you better check this guy out. You know what I mean? I have a lot of fucking interviews on. I don't get this fucking excited, okay? So, look, there's some other quiet. I like that guy from Kentucky, too. Yeah, but there's fucking levels to this shit. And this is one of the realest ones. There's no fucking question about it, all right? God bless. All right. Want to say bye to the audience?
Yeah, hey, thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Again, you know, subscribe and like DJL7's videos because, again, as all the things we talked about, like, we need, and we don't need to just do one thing or two things. We unfortunately need to do a lot of things. It needs to be a robust, holistic effort, right? So, yeah, however you can fill in.
I'm on board, bro.
Please do, and bring people with you because we need the team.
Hell yeah. Okay, so we're going to go off air. I'm going to find about getting that bumper stick or something. We're going to talk about that, right?
Thank you.
Enjoy, all right? Peace.
It's a dark day in our nation when high-level authorities will seek to use every method to silence dissent. The truth must be told.
And if you want the truth, you need to check out independent media producers just like myself, DJL7. You should subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I release a new video.
Truth of these
We are
words
on all
is
the major
beyond doubt.
platforms. That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Unfortunately, we have definitely seen that these mainstream outlets will cave to corporate interests, so we encourage you to join our independently moderated communities of Reddit and Discord. We also encourage you to subscribe to us on BitChute Daily Motion so you can see the content that YouTube doesn't want us to let you see. Hey, now it's time for the most important part of the video. That's right. It's time for us to tell you about the Taking Action Group. Do you need an activist? Or maybe there's no activists around willing to help you with your cause and you need to learn to become an activist. That's exactly why we're here. Every week we get up with people from across the nation, in fact even sometimes internationally, and we develop strategies and a game plan to address the issues that are affecting all of us. Every week myself from New York City and of course my co-host Lisa from Los Angeles provide a coast-to-coast perspective on what's going on in the country. If you want to donate to help out with expenses, travel, equipment, stuff like that, then I definitely appreciate it, and you can hit us off at Venmo or PayPal. Thanks a lot. Hey, by the way, we also have a merch store, so check it out. Oh my goodness, it seems like you've reached the end of the video, so make sure you check out some of our other videos. Make sure you subscribe. This is your last chance to do so thanks a lot. And looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment below if you have any questions or issues you'd like me to address. And if you're an activist, the time to make things happen is now.